Hello, namaste, thanks for coming. So, what is enlightenment? Well, Suzuki says that enlightenment is just like normal life, except 2 inches above the ground. So, what does he mean by this? Well, what he means by this is there's a sense of weightlessness when we're considering enlightenment. There's a sense of freedom that comes with it. You're not being weighed down. There's no weight on your shoulders. You're not being weighed down by anything. So enlightenment is translated to Satori in Japanese and Bodhi in Sanskrit. And here they are right here. So probably the most famous enlightened being in Buddhism is the Buddha. And Buddha translates to awakened being. So enlightenment is this process of awakening. This is when one realizes the truth and they realize the non-existence of separation between everything. There's a unified whole. So enlightenment also puts an end to the cycle of transmigration, the cycle of birth and death. And this is known as samsara. Samsara is the cycle of birth and death. And samsara is equivalent of dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A. And dukkha is suffering. So samsara leads to suffering. When someone's stuck in the cycle of birth and death, they're a suffering, karma infested man or woman. But when they can reach enlightenment, and when they reach enlightenment, there is something called nirvana that happens. And nirvana means a blowing out. It literally translates to blowing out. So this is like saying, phew. It's a release. It's relieving. And nirvana is the antithesis of dukkha, suffering. Nirvana is this freedom from the cycle of birth and death that underlies birth and death, because underneath this birth and death that's stuck on chronological and historical time, underneath that there's no birth and no death. And that's what nirvana emphasizes. So Satori is said to happen when consciousness realizes a state of one thought. One thought translates to ek-aksana in Sanskrit. So in Sanskrit, ek means one, and kasana means either thought or instant. So one thought can be described as the shortest possible unit of time. So time has gone so small that it has lost all of its meaning. And this is known as the absolute present, or the eternal now. So in ek-aksana, this is a point that neither has a past or a future, because when enlightenment is realized, time completely ceases to exist. It's a flow state. You can't, if you're in a state of one thought or ek-aksana, you can't be thinking about the past and you can't be thinking about the future, because there is only the present. That's the only thing that you can be immersed in at that moment, because that is when the flow happens. That's when life flows freely. So ultimately, eternity and time need each other. So what I mean by this is, in order for time to exist, it needs something to work with. It needs parameters to work with. So it needs a substance to exist in. Whereas for eternity to exist, it needs to be divided into the order of time so that it can work out its infinite possibilities. So each moment of living marks the steps of eternity. And Suzuki says, I'm going to quote him here, he says, "To take hold of eternity, consciousness must be awakened just at the very moment when eternity lifts up its feet to step into time. This is known as the absolute present." So this is the point that has no past, the past is left behind, and there's no future ahead of it. Satori stands at the point where infinite possibilities are waiting to actualize themselves. And this leads into how Satori, or enlightenment, is filled with creative vitality, because there is all these infinite possibilities waiting to manifest themselves. And when you are fresh in the mind, when there is a pureness of the mind, you are able to select and choose. You can select which of the infinite possibilities you would like to actualize themselves. So the enlightened being isn't bogged down by worries about the future or stress regarding a past event, and this is why they are free. They're not bogged down by these things, so therefore they can select and choose freely. Their intuition increases, so they can freely select which possibilities they want to actualize themselves. Daiju says in his book, Abrupt Awakening, that when the mind penetrates through this instant, what is before and what is after are manifested at once to this mind. It is like the past Buddhas at once facing the future Buddhas. The 10,000 things occur simultaneously. So says the sutras. When all things are known in one thought, this is the spiritual field, for all knowledge is attained here. And when I say spiritual, in the lens of Zen, this is the oneness. Spiritual is this oneness, this divine presence which underlies the world of particular things. And this bifurcation of reality is the work of the intellect. And it also has its uses. It certainly has its uses. But this is not ultimately satisfying to the soul. That's what Zen emphasizes. So as soon as you step into the absolute present, the eternal now, you're no longer living in a system of time and space. You're no longer a karma-infested being, a logically minded man or woman. And when you see things in Satori, there is no longer a subject or an object. All there is they're the same. The subject and the object are the same. What is seeing is what is. And vice versa. This is because separation and labeling cannot exist in Satori. Subject and object are one. So this isn't seeing in the ordinary dualistic sense. Zen, and enlightenment in particular, opens up the possibility of seeing the suchness or the isness of things. And suchness and isness are two very commonly used terms in Zen. And what they mean is by suchness and isness is this pureness, the essence of all things, the essence of the form of all things. So suchness is synonymous with pureness. And when I say pure, I mean unconditioned and undifferentiated. So this is how Satori sees things. It sees things in an unconditioned manner. You have to let go of any kind of past conditioning in order to see things in Satori. You have to see things as if you're seeing them for the first time. And this is the pureness, because it's not conditioned. It's not differentiated. So I'm going to list some commonly used synonyms for Satori that are used in Zen. And they are the mind which has no abode, the mind that owns nothing, the homeless mind, the unattached mind, mindlessness, thoughtlessness, and the one mind. So Zen denies the existence of the mind as reality, because to Zen the mind's just memory. The mind is just this recollection of past events that have formed together into a story. And the Zen Buddhism denies this as reality. So it also emphasizes that the rational mind, the labeling mind, has been the bane of human existence, because it has prevented us from getting a deeper understanding of ourselves. And in Zen, there are two forms of knowledge. The first one is prana knowledge, and the second one is vijnana knowledge. Should have wrote them another way. So prana knowledge is transcendental knowledge. It's all knowledge. It is the thing that underlines vijnana knowledge. This is the undifferentiated form of knowledge. This is where Satori operates. Whereas vijnana knowledge, this is our rational knowledge. That is, you could see it as on top of the prana knowledge. And this is where the subject and the object are distinguishable. This is where we would use vijnana knowledge with our logical reasoning. This is the knowledge of concrete, particular things. So prana knowledge underlies vijnana knowledge. And it's from prana, not vijnana, that we get our spiritual satisfaction. So I'm going to give you a quick summary just to go over what we talked about here. So enlightenment or Satori is the realization of one thought, or ekaksana. And one thought is the experience of the absolute present or the eternal now. The absolute present or the eternal now, you can term this as God, if you like. And God is love. And love in its purest sense, is this feeling of oneness, this non-duality, this non-separation. So when one is when one is in love with everything around them, they can be described as a holy or an enlightened being. And when I say holy, I mean they are literally whole. There's no separation in themselves or outside of themselves. They are whole. So the soul is the part of you which is rooted in love. When you're seeing things through the soul, you are seeing things in an enlightened state. You're seeing things in ekaksana. So how do you realize enlightenment or satori? Well, the ego likes to, put it up on a very, very, very high pedestal, and it says, you have to meditate for 50 years on top of Mount Everest in order to achieve this. But it does require effort. It definitely does require effort, but it's certainly obtainable. And how you obtain this is meditation. Meditation is the way in which you turn off the logical mind, you turn off the thinking mind. Normally it's just running, and the Buddhists call this the monkey mind, because it just keeps running, it doesn't stop. And when you meditate, you can slowly turn this rational running mind off, and once you turn it off, you're more aware of what is happening all around you. You're more awake, and this is where the awakening happens. This is where enlightenment can happen. So that's my recommendation for that. So I'm going to end this here. Thanks for watching. Namaste. God bless you. Thank you.